toward the detached garage and said, "We're tight on space inside, so we set up tables out there for the extended family." I stood in my best dress, holding a beautifully wrapped anniversary gift, completely numb as the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses drifted from the main dining room. Inside, the tables were gleaming with fine china for my golden boy brother and even my cousin who had literally stolen from our family business. Outside, I was being relegated to a concrete floor next to lawnmowers and oil stains. Everyone thought I would just quietly accept the humiliation to avoid making a scene at my parents' milestone celebration. Instead, I tightly gripped my gift, looked my father dead in the eye, and said, "Why don't you extend this?" What I did next caused my mother to run screaming down the driveway in front of every single guest, completely shattering their perfect evening. For 26 years, I was the reliable daughter, the one who quietly anchored the family while my brother blew through their savings. My name is Emily, and at 26 years old, I had finally built a life of my own, standing tall with the kind of quiet confidence that carries you through the worst storms. But nothing could have prepared me for the sheer disrespect waiting for me at my parents' lavish 30th wedding anniversary party. The evening air was crisp, and the driveway of their suburban estate was packed with catering trucks and luxury cars. I had spent 3 months saving up for a beautiful, high-value anniversary gift. Walking into the venue, my father stopped me right at the threshold of the main dining room. He didn't even look me in the eye as his hand gripped my shoulder, steering me away from the beautifully decorated tables gleaming with fine china. He pointed a dismissive finger toward the detached garage across the lawn. "We're exceptionally tight on space inside the main house tonight, Emily," he said, his voice completely flat and unbothered. "So we set up the overflow tables out there in the garage for the extended family. You'll fit right in with them." I stood there completely frozen, the heavy gift box slipping slightly in my hands. The blatant humiliation stung like ice, and as I looked at his cold expression, the final thread of my compliance snapped. Walking out to the detached garage felt like marching toward my own public execution. I pushed open the heavy side door, and the metallic tang of motor oil and old gasoline hit my nose instantly. The setup was a total joke. 2 cheap plastic folding tables shoved carelessly between stacked storage boxes, a rusted lawnmower, and dusty garden tools leaning against the concrete wall. I walked over to the small window that faced the main house and looked inside at the glowing, warm dining room. The double standard was absolutely sickening. My golden child brother sat right at the head table, laughing loudly, while just a few seats down sat our cousin, the exact same cousin who had literally embezzled thousands of dollars from my parents' family business just 2 years ago. Yet, he had a prime seat with a personalized name card, while I was thrown out here with the clutter. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and see how far my story has reached." Staring through that glass, watching them toast to a perfect family dynamic that was built entirely on lies, something shifted inside me. The familiar, crushing weight of trying to earn their approval just evaporated into the cold garage air. I looked down at the beautifully wrapped box in my hands and realized I was done playing the quiet, obedient scapegoat. They wanted to treat me like an outsider who didn't belong in their inner circle? Fine. I was going to give them exactly what they asked for, but not before I tore down the front of their perfect little evening. I turned on my heel, pushed open the garage door, and marched straight back into the main house, cutting through the crowded dining room with absolute purpose. The lively chatter and the clinking of champagne glasses faded into the background as I approached the main display table where all the anniversary presents were stacked. I reached out and firmly grabbed the heavy, beautifully wrapped box I had spent 3 months saving for, the one they clearly didn't deserve. My father spotted me from across the room and tried to quickly intercept me before the other guests could notice, his face tightening with sudden annoyance. "Emily, what on earth do you think you're doing?" he whispered harshly, grabbing my elbow to pull me away from the crowd. "Put that back and go back outside where you belong. You're causing a scene." I pulled my arm away from his grip, stood up straight, and looked him dead in the eye, letting my voice ring out just loud enough to cut through the surrounding conversations. "Why don't you extend this?" I said, slamming the heavy box back down onto the table with a loud thud that made the nearby wine glasses rattle. An immediate, Suffocating hush fell over the entire room as relatives and catering staff turned around to stare directly at us. My father gasped, his face flushing deep red with embarrassment as he realized his perfect, controlled event was slipping out of his hands. I didn't give him a single second to recover his composure or offer another pathetic excuse. I turned my back on him and the entire room of stunned onlookers, walking out. The heavy front door clicked shut behind me, cutting off the suffocating silence of the dining room as I walked briskly down the front steps. My heels clicked sharply against the pavement of the long driveway, each step taking me closer to my car and the freedom I had been craving for years. But behind me, the house was already erupting into chaos. My mother, suddenly realizing the immense public embarrassment of having her own daughter walk out of a milestone event, completely panicked. I heard the front door fly open again, followed by the frantic sound of footsteps sprinting across the concrete. "Emily, stop right there. You come back inside this instant," she shrieked, her voice echoing loudly across the manicured front lawn. Neighbors who were out watering their gardens turned to look, and several valet drivers stopped in their tracks as my mother chased me down the driveway, her face twisted in a mixture of rage and sheer desperation. She grabbed the sleeve of my dress, pulling me back with a force that showed just how terrified she was of losing control over her image. She didn't care that I was hurt. She only cared that the neighbors and relatives were watching a messy family drama unfold right in front of their faces. "You are ruining our special night over a stupid seating arrangement," she hissed loudly, her breathing ragged as she tried to force me to turn around and play along with their perfect lie. I pulled my sleeve from her grip, the fabric ripping slightly, and turned around to look at her with an icy calmness that made her stumble backward. "You think this is about a seating arrangement, Mom?" I asked, my voice cutting through the humid evening air as she glared at me. "You think I'm being selfish because you shoved me into a garage next to lawnmowers?" She opened her mouth to launch into another furious lecture about family duty, but I reached into the side pocket of my coat and pulled out a thick, folded document. I hadn't just brought a beautiful anniversary gift to this party. I had brought a massive truth bomb that was about to permanently shatter their fragile facade. Thanks to my recent promotion at the forensic accounting firm, I had gained legal access to flagged financial accounts, and what I discovered left me completely sickened. I opened the file right there under the driveway lights, forcing her to look at the highlighted numbers. "Your golden child's son hasn't been building a successful business," I said clearly, letting the words hang heavily between us. "He's been systematically draining your entire joint retirement fund for the past 18 months. The paperwork detailed a series of unauthorized wire transfers totaling over $240,000, money my parents thought was safely tucked away for their old age. My brother had used their primary routing number to forge signatures and fund his spiraling lifestyle, leaving them on the absolute brink of total financial ruin." My mother stared at the official bank audits, her self-righteous anger instantly evaporating into a cold, paralyzing dread as the true horror sank in. By this time, the muted murmurs from the dining room had completely died down, replaced by a tense curiosity that drew people outside. Guests began spilling out onto the front porch and the manicured lawn, whispering among themselves as they overheard my shocking accusations echoing under the driveway lights. My father came running out of the house, his chest puffed out, fully prepared to defend his favored son, and put me back in my place for disrupting their milestone celebration. "Emily, stop spreading these vicious lies about your brother," he shouted, stepping between me and my trembling mother. "He is a successful businessman, and you are just jealous because we've always been proud of his achievements." Instead of arguing, I simply smiled and handed the thick legal file directly to him, letting the cold, hard data speak for itself right there in the open air. His eyes scanned the official bank stamps, the highlighted wire transfers, and his own forged signatures, his aggressive posture collapsing in an instant. The absolute chaos that erupted on the lawn was mesmerizing. My mother broke into hysterical tears, while my brother, who had just walked out holding a champagne glass, turned a ghostly shade of white and realized his shielding facade was permanently gone. The very parents who had banished me to a concrete garage to make room for a thief were now staring at the undeniable proof that their favorite child had financially ruined them. The daughter they treated like an expendable piece of trash was the only one who had the capability and the courage to expose the truth and protect their blind future, but it was already far too late. The fallout from that evening was swift and unyielding. Within a few weeks, the glamorous facade completely crumbled. My brother faced immediate legal consequences for his fraudulent actions, and my parents were ultimately forced to sell their lavish suburban estate just to pay back the heavy debts he had accumulated. They wanted to treat me like an unwanted outsider who deserved to be hidden away in a dark garage, but in the end, they were the ones left out in the cold. I completely cut contact with them that very night, choosing to invest my time and energy into building a peaceful, self-reliant life where my worth is never up for negotiation. It was a painful realization, but it taught me that true family isn't defined by blood or seating arrangements. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and who actually stands by you when the truth comes to light. Now, I want to ask you who listened to my journey. What would you have done if your father forced you to sit in a garage at his own anniversary party? Would you have quietly walked away to preserve the peace? Or would you have exposed the truth in front of everyone just like is right here on the final screen that will definitely surprise and shock you? Thank you so much for watching and supporting